And then hopefully others will awesome. And then hopefully others will join on. Um, share my screen. So, okay, tell me when you guys can see this. See if you can see the screen here. And let me know if it goes sideways on you. Is it good? Everything good?
Yeah.
Somebody unmute. Perfect. Outstanding. All right. So this is our February 1st call, right? So this is just leading development camps, how to recruit, how to retain, right? And just session planning. So obviously this still goes right along our pathway for the coaches of the 201, 202, and 203 courses, several of the curriculum and those things that go along with it, just to be a high performance coach. Hopefully that we're gonna turn your world upside down a little bit and give you a little bit of 1% more of what the world are you thinking. I love this picture because I see an athlete doing some athletic moves and but then at the same time you see that athlete sitting there kind of scratching his head like what in the world, and so hopefully I get you thinking a little bit just like that kid is like, how in the world does that have anything to do with wrestling? Recruiting is very, very easy, right? Like, like I said, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we had 26 kids in the program. Now we're over 400. Um, kids need a place to belong. They got to have something to believe in, right? They got to have somebody that believes in them. So not only do they believe in something, but people believe in them. And you got to look at, I think, three different things: are what are you offering them, and what are they wanting, right? Like what do they want from your team or from your organization? Is it just fun? Is there something like if they're coming to a camp, is that just a talent identification camp? Is it a combine camp? Or is it just something where they can learn and improve? Is it a technical camp? Um, Kids, these are different flyers that we put on, that we can put out throughout town, through different organizations, different other sports. When we go into baseball clubs and football clubs, when we go into, a variety of sports, we put these in there. Do you want more friends? Be a part of something that's bigger than you, right? If your goals, the middle flyer there, if your goals are to be in the best shape of your life or gain muscle or strength, or just how about gain confidence, right? Eat what you want, not necessarily get fat. Those things, all of that stuff, get faster times, getting those things, all of that's in there. And so you put that on a flyer, people see it. You can put that in parades, put it in towns, different events. We go to other sporting events and we hit this and we recruit at those events, right? Get those multi-sport athletes, let them become athletes. Question that a lot of people ask is, why do kids participate in sports, right? And this was a study conducted. I'm going to ask children why they want to play sports. And no matter when the study was conducted, the number one reason why they play sports is to have fun. As a coach, that's extremely important to know, and it's your responsibility that comes with this position, right? If you're going to be the coach, you got to make sure the kids having fun. You can see those other sports. As I go into this next slide, you'll see like what's the win for the kid. Why should they join your team? Why should they participate, right? And when you look at it, they want to have fun. They want to improve maybe their skills. Number three thing, they want to stay in shape. They want to do something that they're good at. Maybe they're really good at flips, or maybe they're really good at, headlocks, something like that. Maybe they're really good just at kicking the ball, right? And so then now they provide opportunity with that. Do they want to exercise, right? Maybe they just want to compete. They love competition. So those are it. Very rarely if you see at the bottom of it, why do they participate? Well, some of them participate because they just want to win, right? Um, Not sure. Has anybody ever heard of the 10-80-10 rule? Has anybody heard of this? And remember, I can't see you, so if you'll unmute. Has anybody ever heard of this? No? Hear nothing? These are three different books. All three different books have things. Inside Out Coaching is phenomenal by Joe. It's talking about transactional and transformational. When you get into the theory of the 10-80-10, right? You see that 10% of people in the times of crisis, right, they become negative. They're counterproductive. 80%, they're not going to do anything. They just kind of freeze. They're even keel. They're kind of that sheep. They're just going to follow the herd, right? They're going to be in the middle of the pack. And they're going to wait for somebody else to take that initiative so that way they can follow. And then you got 10% of the people that take control and take the lead. And those are the ones that are looking to transform. If you're trying to transform your club, or Australian wrestling, right? Like, what are you doing to do that? Are you in that 10%, or are you in the 80% just kind of following along? What are you doing to help recruit and retain athletes and retain coaches and recruit coaches? Or is it just a transaction? Just like you go into a store and it's a transaction, you give them money and they give the product, right? Is that all you want? You just want somebody to say that your numbers are high, or are you trying to actually transform them and help them, learn how to help you recruit and grow and retain athletes? Um, One of the things that we like to do whenever we're promoting and we're trying to grow and we're trying to recruit athletes is make things fun, right? You can see the movies over on the right, like all our t-shirts come through and make them off of movies, right? Make it fun, make it something that people want to collect. Um, when you go make the matches something to be at, make it an event, make it just like a football game or a rugby game or a cricket game, right? Um, something like that. Have it in a different sport or a different season, right? Have something there. Another thing that we like to do is like club duel nights. Have the drum line there, right? Make a dance team, make alumni there, put it on TV. All those things are enticing to kids and the parents and the coaches. They want to be a part of that, right? We do just a takedown only tournament. So invite different clubs, invite your local rugby club, jiu-jitsu club, come in and your wrestling club and have a contest. You can get the most takedowns through that. Bring gym, bring choir, bring something to add to the event at a halftime or create a halftime or breaking events to do that. Dual team tournaments. Obviously, you can do all kinds of the side shows, right? You can have silent auctions, you can have food pantries, you can make, like I said earlier, the shirts collectible. Have a chili cook-off, have different contests other than just those going off on the side, and then all of a sudden maybe a kid's parent wants to win like a chili cook-off or something like that. They enter in and their kid's already there, so then they join it, right? And that's another way to jump in. Tie a dual tournament with a camp. You can also add a pancake breakfast in the middle of it, something like that. So then now parents come to watch their kids compete, and now all of a sudden you're making a little money on the side to help support maybe a funding of a trip or a camp or something like that. You see another one like make it a main event, put it in streets. We were down there when I was in Canberra, and that was one of the things I said right there in the middle of that shopping center right there downtown. I'd put a mat right there and I'd make everybody eating dinner watch us, right? And make it into a fun event right in the middle of town. You could do something right there on the Battle of the Bridge on that sidewalk in Canberra down there by the government office. There's some of those like the art exhibit and the art museum and some of those things were downtown. There's that big bridge, and then right off the side of it, there's just a real lovely park that's beautiful. Put some mats out there. I don't know what that would look like or what that would run into, the cost, those things, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But you can mix different tournaments, kind of create different tournaments where you have jiu-jitsu one round, have Greco one round, have freestyle one round. So you're giving different looks, right? And letting everybody participate and try all the styles. You could have kind of the white belt mentality or white belt championship. There's just several of those events, right? Several different ideas and things to throw at that can make fun, that can help recruit. Power, and this is kind of an odd question or an odd thought, right? Like, where does power come from? Because you're going to have power. The more numbers that you have, the more power you're going to have to be able to influence other people because they want to be a part of something bigger than them. So back in the day, right, back in the 1600s, they used to think that our nerves were filled with fluid, spirits, gas, and they were sent through the muscles and saturated with a message, right? And then in the 1600s, a guy, he went and stole all these decapitated heads and they electrocuted them, and then the head would do things. And then the person put a medal on a decapitated cat and they did all sorts of things, but he lied through all that process. So he did steal all those things and he tried this, but he said things were happening, but nothing ever really happened. Well, that gave Mary Shelley the idea, and that's where Frankenstein came from. So that's kind of the story of Frankenstein and where it became. But power it equals work over time, right? It's force from displacement over time. And you're electric, and your kids are electric, and any kind of electric is power, right? Because that's power equals force times velocity. And your words and the kids in your program are way more powerful than you think. It's not about one person, it's about a group. The more people that you have, the more powerful that group is, and the more electricity it's going to have, the more exciting it's going to be. When we pull up to events and we've got two full buses, 40 plus people are still at practice, and we got two busloads full of people that are getting ready to compete at an event, and you can see this and you make show. And you can make the show all at the same time. That's super exciting, and it's super, super powerful. This is just a quick slideshow personally, right? Like, and we do this, and I let our athletes show this. This is part of the sports psychology, and a piece of that for the athletes is, what does it look like? What makes you feel powerful? And these are all things you can see my wife and my daughter in the bottom left. Our world championships, handing the flag over, of course, Rocky. These are different things that make me personally feel powerful. For your average athlete, um, these are your mental tips for them. Affirmation. They've got to have affirmation statements. It's got to stay positive. You got to continue to let them believe in themselves, right? Have the team write them about them. Have them write them about them. Ask them, right? What are your affirmation statements? Write a list for your coach so that way we can say it in a practice plan. We can practice those things. Um, you see the biggest the biggest jump in our season is whenever we're doing these affirmation statements and the students write them on their cards and we say them right before their match, right? Like one of those things is, man, you never get pinned. You're so good. You might lose, but you never get pinned, right? And that excites the kid. And now all of a sudden they're powerful. Now they feel more powerful and they feel that, right? You always get your turn. Whenever you're on top, you're always getting the turn. You're always getting the lift, right? You're getting all of those things every time you're on top. And that gives, super powerful for them. We always do like team songs or theme songs or those like, man, when we hear that, everything's there. A real easy one is postcards for every occasion. So, as they're a multi-sport athlete or if their birthday's coming up or congratulations after a tournament or, if they're sick, just a quick card, it means so, so much to them. Okay. And so, when you look at this, you got to advertise this link. If you want this PowerPoint, I will share it to you. I will share this PowerPoint with you and there's a link and it's just a commercial. It's about a 6 commercial or a 6 minute video on our program and just recruiting and retention on how to get more kids in and how to keep them there. And this is coming from the kids. The kids created this. It was the more powerful from it. And the more that they show it, we show this anywhere we go in the stores, in the malls, those things. We can do this in an advertised, for it. So now we've got powerful, right? Like, so you've got to have power behind like your recruitment and your retention when you're trying to run a camp, especially a development camp. You want to have, numbers in there. What is your selling point? And this is the organization and the planning of a development camp. Who, what, where, why, when, and how, right? Those are the questions that you got to have and we'll work backwards. So the end product is work backwards. What does working backwards look like? What is the end product? What do you want? Okay. You've got to have safety in the camp. You've got to plan for that. Same thing as what age levels or what level of athlete are you looking for? Maybe the age is different, but the level's the same. What does the location look like? The travel in, the travel out. And I know Kyle does a ton of work as far as like just not just the travel coming in and making sure athletes are there, but where are they staying, right? All of that is part of that location and travel. And where's those safety things measured in place there? What coaches are coming and what are their roles, right? What's each individual coach's role? And what the objective of the camp is. Is it a technical camp? Is it just to get them in and get different looks and different partners, right? But if this is a development camp, which is what we were talking about, now you're looking at the objectives. What are your objectives at the end of the camp? What do we need to make sure that is mastered? Is it parterre top? Is it parterre bottom? Is it setups? Is it ties? Is it takedowns? You're not going to be able to do 5 million things, but you are able to do things. And if you're truly working a development camp, you're picking out those things that you want to really, really focus on inside this development camp. And we're going to develop them the best that we can during that time. Some other things you got to think about is your costs. What's the name of the camp? Are you doing like an identification camp? You add the word identification in there, and now all of a sudden it draws a different crowd of people in. Because now if it's a combine, right? So now it's a recruiting thing for maybe, a certain club or a certain organization, right? And then what are the expectations from the athletes and coach within the development camp, right? So when you're looking at that, you're looking at the athletes and you're looking at the development process of it. What are those expectations? Are we developing them mentally, physically, like all of it together? Is it in the nutrition side? Is it in the strength side? Is it the strength in the position side? Like all of those things, right? And then the last kind of piece is really what are the days and the times and the sessions? What's the amount of sessions that you want for the workload when you're trying to accomplish those skills? And that's what your objectives are. How many days and how many sessions and how much time in each session do you need? Obviously, when you're looking at each session, now you got to bring in the risk management. This is in the 201 course. You've seen those pictures several different times. And so when you're looking at this, before the lesson, what's the safety measure, right? During the lesson, what's the safety measures that need to be in place? What's the facility look like? And then obviously afterwards, okay? And if you're having competitions within, then obviously those need to be looked at as well. What's the timing of those competitions in that camp or in that development cycle, right? Periodization plan, it's got to be in there. I truly believe you plan the work, then you work the plan, you adjust, right? Once you're working the plan, things are going to come awry and you're going to have to adjust, and then you advance, right? And then you advance and you move forward. You still have to look at the end, at the very end of the development camp. What are the skills? What are the tactics? What are the things that you are trying to develop? You're calling it a development camp. Is that what we're looking at? And what are those key factors of the KFAs, the key factor analysis that you need, right? And what are the accountability points to confirm that those goals are being met throughout the camp? So does your schedule match all aspects of the development that's built within it, right? Is your schedule, all of those things built in with the camp? So then that way you can confirm at the end of the camp that these things were taught, they were addressed, they were scheduled, they were planned, and you plan the work ahead of time, and now you just got to work the plan during the camp, right? And then throughout camp, as things come up, then you're going to adjust, right? In bright red, this is one of the biggest things that I tell coaches all the time that kids really and athletes, they really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if there's one thing that you can take from this, that's definitely it. If they know how much that you care about their development, now they're going to start buying into you a little bit more. Carpe diem, seize the day, and obviously champions always do extra. So if you're only running one session a day, that could be fine and that could be valuable if it's really focused and the kids know exactly what they're getting out of it and they know that you care about the product that you're trying to deliver to them within the development cycle, right? And within the development session. How do we take our goals, right? Like, and how do we take those from the development camp and add it into what is already coaching and apply it to our plan for remembering, right? What's the 3 keys to the periodization planning? Obviously, these are 3 keys. We've talked about this in the past few weeks. Establish clear goals. What are the goals? What are the goals of the development camp? What are we trying to develop? Structure the training cycles to match accordingly, and inside that periodization planning to match those goals, right? If you're planning parterre top, and that's one of the goals is to successfully work on a gut wrench or a leg lace, but you're spending all of your plans and your sessions and your training cycles are in neutral, or a majority of the time is. I don't know that that's meeting that, right? I don't know that those are in line. Same thing as you got to manipulate the training variables as you go. If you need more time for an area, where are you going to cut? Where are you going to get back? Because if you cut something out, then you've got to take it away from something else. These 3 things, obviously, who's invited. So now we've talked about what, and we talked about, the goals of the development camp and those things. Now you got to figure out who's inviting or who's invited. Is it their personal coach? Is it just the national coaches that are running it? And is it the athlete? All 3 of those things have to be inside. All 3 of those people, they need veto power. They got to feel some power. We go back to that word power at the beginning of the presentation that I was talking about, because everyone should have veto power in this, and they all have to say yes for the athlete to participate to full capacity to get the most out of it. It's definitely teamwork, right? And it's got to be in the best interest of the athlete. If the whole development camp is to advance the athlete, these 3 people, these are 3 key factors in this as well, and 3 key people that need to be working together in sync so that way they can advance the athlete, right? And that goes to as far as nutrition. That's why I put the picture in there. They've got to work inside and they've got to communicate on those things as well. All of the side factors, each one of these 3 people in this triangle, they need to be able to work together on all aspects. What's the sports psychology side of it? What's the nutritional side of it? What's the training cycles look like? What's the workload? What's the volume compared to the intensity? Does that match? If the national coach is running the development camp, then the personal coach has to communicate the periodization planning that they're in the middle. If the national coach is giving out the periodization plan, then the personal coach needs to be vice versa, right? The athlete has to be in sync and has to know all those things as well. So now when we get into it, We know who's coming. We decided, who's all coming. Is it just the national coaching staff? Is it the personal coach and the national coaching staff coming with the athlete? Now we know those. What are those coaches' responsibilities in the development camp? The national coach is running all sessions. Is that personal coach? Are they working with certain individuals? Are they working with just their individual? What does that look like? How many personal coaches are coming to the development camp? Remember, the coach's job is to get the athlete from point A to point B, right? And so there used to be a stagecoach, or you can see the bus there. Now, when we look into coaches' responsibilities in the camp, I think one of the first things that we have to look at is what's their why? Why are they invited? Why is that personal coach invited? Why is that national team coach invited? What's their strength? Is their strength video review? Is it breaking down film? Is it breaking down technique? Is it teaching technique? Is it the psychology piece? Does that personal coach need to be there so that their athlete can get the most, support and background and affirmation? Going back to that word, the affirmation that gives power to the athlete. Is that why the personal coach is there, to keep affirming the athlete while the national coach is running the camp, and affirming that what the national coach is doing is right in line with the periodization plan? All those three have to be working together, like I stated earlier. Number two, what's the strengths and weaknesses within the group, right? How can you make everyone better? If you're the coach there at the development camp, how can you make everyone in the camp better? Not just your personal athlete, but everybody. How can you make the other coaches better? How can you make the entire development camp better, right? And what are those roles and expectations within it? Those need to be completely written out and organized and scripted before you ever walk in. If your role and expectation is to design the practice plan on the third day, then that needs to be turned in as you come in. Every coach needs to know, hey, on the third day, this is our schedule. This is what we're doing within this, right? And these are the accountability points, which is number 4, right? These are the accountability points that and confirm that the goals are being met throughout the camp, right? All of the schedules, each day, each training session, each practice it's all in line with it, right? It's all in line with the development camp. It's all in line with the periodization plan. It's all in line with the long-term athlete development model. All of those things are there. Going back to the Lorex's famous quote that I love to use, and I've used several calls, it's not what it is, it's what it can become. And if you're in the development camp, that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to develop the athlete. Any questions so far? Everybody good?
All good from me, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Oh, yeah. We go back to it. Okay, perfect. Um, here's something that's an organizational piece when you're going to a camp, especially when you've got females there. I do this with the males as well. I give them a checklist, right? Is all the jewelry removed? Long hair, is it braided? What about the nails? Every coach talks about that. Make sure you're taking a shower and you're clean and all of those things. There's just a quick checklist there. For girls on the right-hand side, you see that there's like LucaFit, right? Like you see lucafit.com. That gives into the women's cycle. And that helps them know whenever they're most likely a higher chance for injury. There's Wrestle Like a Girl has a ton of things. USA Wrestling has a ton of sites. You can go, UWW has a great deal of resources on there as well. These were just things that were created within a high school development model. It's one of the fastest growing sports here in the United States, obviously, is women's wrestling. And so, this is where I've taken this from them. As I said many times, I'm a pirate coach, right? And the last thing that you see kind of at an angle is, what are we educating and developing during this camp? Are we teaching them how to be self-sufficient? Are we teaching them how to manage weight? Not cut weight. Are we teaching them how to manage weight, especially on the female side, right? Because now you're talking about the menstrual cycle. You're talking about them retaining water. You're talking about the injury prevention. You're talking about all of those things, the mental safety and well-being, right? These are all things that we should be doing during a development camp because you're making them, what are their expectations for practice? Are they journaling? All of these things are a piece of this. As I said earlier, we work backwards, right? Their development camp takeaways. What technical aspects of camp are we wanting them to take away? What mental aspects of camp are we wanting them to take away? If they're a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, are we starting the journal process with them to get the mental aspect and get that affirmation statement going? They're writing down, man, I really hit that great single. Like, man, I got my single leg. I got a skill backs and I got a really, really good leg lace out of this. Man, I got into a Turk or I got into a cradle off of this position. Are they writing those down? Is that helping them mentally at the same time of coming up with technical aspects, right? And that's the final question. What are the technical aspects? Are we talking about zone wrestling? Are we talking about the step out? Are we talking about What's our technical aspect of going maybe from a lace to a gut, or going from a lace to a lift, or a lift to a gut, or a gut to a lift? Are we looking at those tactical aspects? Hey, you're really strong at a gut, but you're even stronger when you go from a lift to a gut and that transition. Are we breaking that down? Is that part of the technical piece that we want to look into, right? So we need to look at the development camp takeaways. When they walk away from development camp, what are we wanting them to take away from the camp, right? Um, the same thing that we got to be mindful is this long-term athletic development model. So what does the 15-year-old need? What does the 17-year-old need? What does the 20-year-old need? What does the senior athlete need? Right? All of those things. Which one do they want? And what's going to help them within their plan? So keeping that in mind, what's the risk management? Well, what's the development? The risk management here, when you're talking about the development and the long-term development thing, if they don't know how to crawl before they walk, the odds of them running are what, right? So there's just a progression there. It's the same thing here. A lot of kids, there's a transition piece from a takedown to a lace or a takedown to a gut. The risk is if you miss that step, can they fully develop in the fundamentally sound way, right? And that's the process of decision making and implementation. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. It also minimizes injury and the loss. And so you see that, right? Make sure that when we're planning for the development camps, that we stay within the development levels within all training. So we need to be addressing the nutrition. We need to address the proper level of journals, right? If you're a senior level athlete, your journal should look completely different than the U15 or the U17, right? What's the technique? What's the technique in this development level? Each age appropriate, right? How many throws are we doing with the younger age group compared to the senior age group? What about the film? Maybe the beginning film is just, hey, watch yourself. What do you see? That's just the simple film breakdown. Hey, what worked, what didn't work, and they're watching it. And then you get to the senior level athlete, and now you're looking at maybe you're breaking the footwork, right? Steps down. Maybe you're looking at a thumb position. Maybe you're looking at the elbow position. Maybe you're looking at the setup and the transition of the setup, right? Getting into step. And so you got to look at the physical literacy, the specialization, all of the age, all of those things, and the trainability within it, right? So when we get into the nutritional thing, like I said, there's a long-term athletic development process here, right? And we're looking at that plan. And are you giving them options to eat? So we're talking about nutrition piece here. And a lot of times sodium, we know, is going to retain the water. And so when you're talking about management of weight, maybe you give them options for the lower level group, right? Because they don't understand this as much. But the higher age group, your senior athletes, they already kind of got their diet worked down and what's going to work for them to manage their weight the best. But for your lower athletes, maybe they don't understand this. What's easy on the stomach? Are we high grains? Are we low grains? What, is it high fiber? What do you need before, pre, post match? Is it yogurt? Is it not? Right? But these give them good, healthy options. So now you're looking at journaling. As we talked about, I've said this before. When you're doing journals, depending on what level you're developing and what level you're working with, these are different things. But one of the things, if you want 8 hours of sleep, you better be in bed for 8 hours most of the time, right? Because when you wake up and when you go to sleep, you need that time, especially when you're planning your REM cycles. Your senior level athletes, they should know how many REM cycles they're getting in for the most part, and what's going to help them get to that. Your lower level athletes, it's as simple as, hey, you need to be in bed at this time, right? So there's a development process with that. Recovery. This is another big one when you're talking development. Recovery, as we've talked about the last several calls, that pike, right, or that peak where you go down in that valley after you've broken down in training, and how do you get them to rise above where they came in so they truly grow and truly develop? And these are all areas. These are another quick six things. Is it the breathing? Is it the mindfulness, the meditation? Is that helping them? The massage, the foam rolling, the active recovery, quality of sleep, and nutrition. All of those things depending upon their level as to the development, right? Some other things that we go, like when we get into the when, right? So we've done the who, what, where, why, how, now you're looking at the dates of the camps or the trips. And I know that I've talked with Will, I've talked with a couple of other coaches about different tours that we're going on, right? And these are some different ones that we've looked at. And you've got to celebrate them, and you got to brag about them. And that goes back to the recruiting and retention and giving you power and numbers. And all of a sudden you take a team overseas, and they have a blast, and this is a development camp, and maybe that's part of the development. If you're looking to win the world title and you've never been there, like prime example, LA Games in 2028, right? If you're planning on winning the Olympics in 2028, but yet you've never been to America, it's not a disadvantage, but it's definitely not an advantage, right? And so, are you planning those? Are you looking at that in the development model? I know that we look at that quite a bit. If I'm looking at the Paris Olympics coming up here in a few months, obviously we've been there, we've trained there, we've been there before, we've competed there, we found tournaments there. So that way a kid goes there and now all of a sudden that's the affirmation statement. Hey, you've already been there. You've already competed here. You've already gotten a takedown in this place. You've already gotten you've already got to take a win in this tournament or in this city, right? So we complete, celebrate those at the same time we're sharing those opportunities to grow and develop. How is tough mindset taught through wrestling, right? There's a variety of ways. You'll see, there's several things here, and it's that power of numbers, right? We've even got athletes that are doing stuff to their shoes, and that's the affirmation statement, all the way down to the little girl on the right. She's doing flips over the dummy, and she's building that confidence, and she's going through there, and she sees how tough she is, right? A couple more slides here. One quote of the night, right? I've shared this on a lot of presentations here. Popcorn's prepared in the same pot, same heat, same oil, and yet the kernels don't pop at the same time. So don't compare one athlete to another. And we tend to do that, right? When you're doing a development camp, you got to realize everybody's going to develop at a different level. So one athlete, they might need 500 gut wrenches in a development camp. Another athlete, they might just need to look at it and watch it because they're a video or they're a visual learner, they're an audio learner, right? Like everybody learns in different ways. And so it's one of those things that what does that athlete need and how can they best perform, and don't compare one athlete to another. Any questions so far? I'm going to kind of turn it to you. I'm going to show this real quick. I'm going to show this slide. I'm going to zoom in, and I want you to look at it for a second, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So this would be if I did a 2-week Greco-Roman camp. This would be the day one in, and so I'm going to kind of zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So you kind of see a timeline. You can see a little bit of detail on this. Scroll up a little bit. So you can see there's a recovery piece and a refueling piece in there. Okay, and then you see all the way down. So now we're going into the evening, right? Evening session of this. And then obviously key time is correct, right? Any questions on this? Like any thoughts with this? This would be just one day. This is the arrival day. This is our travel day in. You get them in, and if you notice one thing I want you to look at right here is our team meeting. Like our team meeting here at 3:45 or 3:45. We go over the expectations day one. Hey, this is the expectation of the coaches. This is the expectation of the athlete. This is what we're doing at the development camp. This is what we're going to get at the end of camp. This is our goal. You lay all that groundwork in. Hey, these are where your meals are going to be. These are the facilities. These are the expectations. You clean up your tray. You clean up the facilities, right? This is where you're going to sleep. These are the dorms. All of those things, right? What's the standard? What's the standards going to look like when we go to, to Guam? The guys are going to Guam right now. And these are things that Andre, I guarantee, is doing right now. What's the expectation for our team, the standards there once we get there, and how are we training it? If we're running a development camp back in, say Sydney or Melbourne or wherever, what's the expectation when we go to the Olympics or when we go to the Olympic qualifier here in March? This is our standard, right? What's the training partner guidelines? Maybe you're not the Olympian, or maybe you're not the world champion. Like what's going to look like, right? If you get injured or you get a concussion or you got dinged up with shoulders or knees or ankles or things that come in, where's the trainer? What's this look like? What's the injury? Okay. And so there's a lot of things here. Here in this particular camp, you see I also listed some things. The watch, just watching contact. Where's our first contact at? Are we reaching? Where's our elbows? Where's our head? Where's those? Like we're pushing the zone. I always make sure that I remind them that I will praise them in public, but I'm going to reprimand them in private, right? So we're going to praise them in public. We're going to stay positive. We're going to do those things if it's a development camp. Stay as positive as you can and get those affirmations. Any question? That's kind of last thing. So last slide, bottom line. Does the development plan and development camp plan stay in line with the athlete development model for long-term And what's the win-win for you and your athletes? How do you recruit them? How do you recruit for your club and the retention of your club? And at the same point in time, what's the win for the athlete? Why would the athlete join your club? Why would the athlete want to go to that camp? Why does this senior athlete need to go to this development camp? All of those things are in question there. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you guys. And what's your thoughts? What's some feedback? What would you do differently? What did you see that you liked, and what did you see that I don't necessarily like that? Not everybody wants to. Muhammad, you got any questions? Or Will? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, everything so far is looking good. Obviously, we've had some discussions on coming over and all that. So far it's good. Just trying to probably need to plan it more better, write it down more step by step exactly, and not just run it through quickly through ahead. I think the planning part's probably a very good thing that I've taken from it.
Awesome. Yeah, and so like when you guys come over here, like we're gonna have a plan. Like that's it. Like what aspect do you want your athletes to develop, right? Like what are you wanting other than the cultural experience, traveling overseas, competing, and training with the Americans, training with this, and this. But what's the other thing? Like, do you want to come back better in a 2-on-1? You want to come back better in an underhook, right? That's a development process. Come back with 2 or 3 tactical skills and technical skills that you know that they're going to use, right? Maybe it's just come up with a game plan match, like a match game plan of, hey, I'm really good in a 2-on-1. How do I get to my 2-on-1? And come up with 5 or 6 setups to get to that, right? And so that's one of the conversations that you and I will have, kind of lead into that. And just so you know, right now, I'm really looking at probably that second week of July is kind of where we're looking at. I've talked to 3 other clubs. They can maybe, and I can get you and transport you. Once you guys get here, we can transport you, feed you, house you, all that stuff, and we can work on that. But that's a side project. But on the development, this would be this is a development trip. Like that's the way I view it. Is that the way that you're viewing it?
Yeah, definitely development. I've got the guys with a 2 to 3 year goals, and this is part of reaching to those goals. So they've all set aside their goals for each quarter of the year, and this is just the stepping stone. I mean, last year was stepping stone coming to that national camp with you guys, and just keeping moving forward, especially because they're still quite young. So yeah, just try and get them into the mindset that if they want to make it, even get close to it, they need to have that goal-setting mindset and work from there.
Yeah, and that goes back to that affirmation, right? And that power. You've got a ton of power, whether you want it or not, right? Like they're looking to you as a coach and as a mentor, and all these things, and you're providing these opportunities and these big goals and these big opportunities. And so, the more positive you are, and hey, like they're going to have setbacks, right? They're going to have rocks in the road, and that's what champions do. They overcome those things. And so, yeah, no, I think those are great things. What about you guys? Is it Kumar? Is that right, Coach Kumar? Am I saying that right? Mohammed? Yeah, you got something?
Yes, my concern is to increase the base of wrestling in Australia, which is most of the wrestler just join the wrestling to help themselves for jiu-jitsu or MMA, so they not consistently continue with wrestling. But I believe is a good wrestler in Australia, but the problem is they not continue because there's no competitive team like in jiu-jitsu or MMA. We need to improve the base of wrestling in Australia and improve, put a plan to make it more famous in Australia between the kids in school, between the kids in the gyms and that stuff.
Yeah, so you're talking more recruiting, right? I just want to make sure that I understand it, like more, yeah. And so that's exactly it, right? Like, and you were talking about jujitsu in the MMA world, and I think that's it. Like, what's the win for them? And that's exactly like that's what you've got to find is what's that win to get that jujitsu kid to do a little more wrestling, right? Is it the fact of working on the takedown to help the jujitsu, right? Is it the working on those things and how can they defend in these positions? in jujitsu, where in wrestling, obviously we want to put them on their back, right? Well, jujitsu, they want to be on their back. But what's the transition between those things, and how can they transfer in that? And maybe that's the win for the kid, right? And that's the win for the parent. Like, hey, okay, you're here, and this is going to help this aspect of it if that's what they want. The other thing is to create different competitions, and like I said, that one of the things that we found a lot of success with, and actually we did this in Europe. We did this in Europe. I took a development age group of kids, and actually I'm going back over there this summer and doing the same thing. Is we're going to do 2 minutes of beach wrestling, then we're going to take them over to the mat in the grass, and then now all of a sudden they're going to be on the grass, and we're going to do Greco, and they're not going to be able to touch a leg, and then all of a sudden we're going to do another round. So they're going to do a total of 10 minutes, but it's actually 5 2-minute rounds, and it's all different styles and all different rules, and so they're learning those positions, and so maybe they're a Greco kid, but they've got to do all the styles and see how does Greco help them, right? How does Greco wrestling help folk style? How does that help folk style? How does that help beach wrestling? So I would encourage some of those things like within the club. So like you said, smaller competitions, those things, and make it a big deal. Like make it a huge deal. Give them prizes, right? And they don't have to be huge prizes. Sometimes just a pat on the back, or just another T-shirt, or just put their name on the wall. Get a picture of them. Hey, you're the weekly warrior. We do wrestler of the week, and they've got a belt, and they get to carry the belt around. So every time they walk in the gym, they got this huge belt that they walk in, and everybody's trying to take it from them each week, right? And sometimes our weekly wrestler of the week, maybe they bring a friend in. They brought the most people into the gym. They brought the most practice partners with them. Hey, you know what? And that's how they're winning, right? And so just different ideas. It doesn't have to be like the quote unquote win or loss on the map, but maybe it's a different aspect, right? Like, hey, they brought the best food in this week, like afterwards, and create that family environment, right? And hey, man, they brought the best ice cream then after the gelato, they brought the best gelato toppings, this week, and they get the belt, and then they walk in, and it's fun, right? Like it's because that's what kids want. They do sports because it's fun. They quit sports because it's not fun anymore. That's the number one reason athletes quit, is because it's not fun anymore. Well, why is it not fun? Because they're losing, or they think they are, right? So does that kind of answer that question, or at least give you some more thoughts on it?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, does that kind of help a little bit, or give you more thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, and I think that's it. Like, how do you make it a game again, right? Like, how do you make it a game? Like, kids get nervous whenever they, quote unquote wrestling, right? And so, but they don't get nervous if they're playing a board game.
Yeah, actually, when I started just been here in Australia 3 years, and I started teaching wrestling like 2 years ago in Newcastle, New South Wales. So when I started the gym, it's just only the jiu-jitsu gym. So I started to engage with them, and I started to teach them some movements, some drills that help them for jiu-jitsu. Then I started to build them one by step to the wrestling. And at the end, I finished with 1 Oceanic Championship and 3 or 4 national New South Wales national championships. And one of my students is going to Egypt coming month with me for a camp, and
awesome.
He's going to watch the Africa Oceanic champion, which is qualifying for the Olympics. So I organized a camp for him to go and join the Egyptian national team.
That's awesome. Yeah, and even when you're doing that, right? Like, this is still that development process, right? Like, what's that look like? What's your plan look like? Getting to the Olympic qualifier and getting to Egypt. Like, between now and Egypt, what's those camps look like? What's those sessions look like, right?
Unfortunately, I moved from New South Wales to Queensland, and I left the gym. Just to keep contact them on Instagram, and keep contact them and tell them what shall you do, what follow up with them in training class every week. So just continuously keep contact them.
Sure, and that's kind of like even here, I'm talking to some of our athletes down in Australia every week, and coaches, and so that's it. As you guys come up with questions, like Will and I talked a couple times in this last week or so, kind of planning some things. And so if you guys got any questions or things that come up, don't hesitate. Like, I love learning. And that's what I'm doing. I'm learning from you guys as well, right? So Yeah, is there anything else that you guys have on development camp or kind of the process? That's some general things. I think some of the things that I would ask is like, what do you think if you had three rocks? Let's kind of go around the horn here. This would be kind of the final question. But if you had three things that you're going to go right, like David and Goliath, he brings rocks, he hits the Goliath, knocks it down, and kills him, right? And so it's one of those things that what are those three rocks? If you have three rocks, what are those three things that you have to have in a development camp? What do you think they are? Three things that in any development camp, whether it's 15U, 17U, 20U, senior camp, what do you think they are?
I Yeah, can go. So I guess if we can organize like every couple of months a camp in different states and invite all the coaches, all the athletes to go and join, and we try to make it like cheap as much as we can so everyone can join and launch the camp. So and share the experience of all the athletes and all the coaches and referees together, so everyone gets benefits. So I reckon if we can do it like every couple of months, even if we have a competition or not, in different states, make it central for everyone to can join it. And so I reckon this one, according to my perspective, ideas are, I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think? Well, what are the three like non-negotiables? Three things that you have to have in a development camp.
I think for me, camping needs to be fun for me specifically, because I know if you're doing a full day in a couple of days, people get tired, morale gets low, and you need to push through. And the only way to push through if you're having fun and it's a good team bonding environment. Yeah, and for them to also know that it's going to be tough, but they can get through it. So, yeah.
Good. What else? Coach, do you want? I haven't heard. Coach Kumar, are you on? What do you think are some non-negotiables? Is he on? Yeah. I don't know if he's on. I think kind of what I heard both of you guys say, but I think communication, right? Communication off the board. Like you got to communicate with the coaches, the athletes, the personal coaches, all of those things, right? What about organization? We've already talked about that, right? Mohammed said that.
Yeah.
Have that your recovery, and that's what you're talking about. Will is it Coach Zwan? Is that right? Zwan? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Zavon. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. But I think that's it, right? Like the recovery piece, and when you're having fun, that's the mental recovery, right? If you're taking them swimming or you're taking them like whatever the case is, the recovery day there when I was down there, we went to AIS and we went into that recovery session. We got to go to the sauna and the pool tubs and those things and the airbags on the legs and those things. Like that was huge. That was good morale boost. That was fun, right? We enjoyed all those things. But it's also recovery. So yeah, so I think you guys are right on with several of those things, and hopefully I added to it some more things to think about when you're scheduling, because you got to be organized, you got to be planned, you got to communicate the plan, right? So you plan to work the plan, and then you're going to adjust when you get there. If the kids are tired, like you said, well, if they're tired and exhausted after that, then okay, now we got to communicate as a staff, as a coaching staff, what's everybody's roles, and maybe your role was day 3, and on day 3 we're exhausted and we got to back down a little bit, right? So what's that look like? What's that adjustment look like? And what if we're taking away from your session, maybe we add it into another one. So what can we cut out later in the week or whatever? So, okay. Anybody got anything else? I know Andre wanted to just concentrate on the development camp side of things, and recruiting and retention is a big piece of that, right? How do you get athletes in to come do those camps and to get them developed, and hopefully I help some there, right? So anything else for me?
Yeah, I know it's not, yeah, I'm not sure, but I noticed the big challenge for athletes to go and join the camp is financially, because I hear from my students in the gym, 3 or 4 of them, they refuse to go to the camp because they told it costs us a lot of money and we cannot afford it. So this is the biggest challenge for students for the wrestler to go join the camp.
Ready. Sure. Yeah. No. So I think when it comes to finances, right? Like there's a couple of things. One, whenever you and I say it like this: if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And so I say that like when you get engaged, right? That ring is super expensive. Usually that you buy your fiance, right? Like, and you're spending probably more than what you should on that, but you're willing to do it because it means something to you, right? And so they're invested now with our athletes, and I encourage them like create something, right? Like go work for it. Don't just ask people for it. Like that does help if you've got, if you go to businesses or you go to this or that and they can sponsor things and they know what's the win for them. If you go ask somebody for money, what's the win for them? Are you going to put their name on your t-shirt? Are you going to put, every time you do an interview after you win the tournament or you win the Olympics or you win the world title or you win the local tournament, are you going to advertise for them? Are you going to put them in the newspaper? Are you going to put them on social media? Are you going to put them in your commercial that you make? Are you going to do all those things? And how many times are you going to do that? And what's the win for them? What's the win for the business to donate? Is it, and then the other side of thing is, especially when you're talking about young athletes that are trying to come to development camp or they're trying to work their way overseas or this or that, go around and talk to family. What can I do for you? How can I work for you? Can I mow your grass? Can I weed eat? Can I pick up rocks? Can I, what can I do for you? Can I clean your house? Can I do these things? What kind of projects do you have? You need me to build a fence. You need me to do this. And hey, this is what this money is going to. And a lot of times they'll give it the extra tip. They'll give the extra mile, right? Even if it's just a lot of times you can go to different businesses in town and volunteer. But when you volunteer things, a lot of times those businesses will kick back at different times. And if they know something's coming up, and especially if you start planning a trip in a year in advance, you've got a year. And that goes back to plan the work. If you're working to go to a camp overseas and it's going to cost $3,000 and you don't have that, well, now you got a year to budget that. You got a year to plan that accordingly. And maybe that's part of your Christmas gifts or your, or whatever the case is. Maybe you build that in. I know some of my kids, they've been working to go overseas with me for 2 years and their Christmas gifts and those things have been their passports. Right. And so, like that's their Christmas gifts and they've been planning for years in advance. And so now they've got their passport. And so now they're ready. And now the last year, that was 2 years ago, they got their passports. Good for 10 years. Now they're looking at the next step. Now they're looking at, so they break it into chunks. They don't do it all at once. The other thing is they come to the coach and hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Can I maybe only go to part of the development camp? Right? Like all of those things. So, what's the cost of this? And Kyle can tell you this as well. Like just the rooming and the housing and those things. A lot of times the more people you have, and that gives power, it goes back to power. The more people you can have and put in that room, the cheaper the cost is. If you're going to a hotel room, and it's 4 people to a room, that's a lot better than 1 person to a room, right? Cost wise. The other thing is like then you make connections and you build relationships. Like Will and I have been kind of setting up this, and he comes up here, he's built a relationship, and his cost up here, once he gets up here, like I'm going to make sure that the housing and the food and those things, like he's not going to have to worry about that financially. Like we're going to take care of as much of that as I possibly can through our clubs and our organizations and our things. And so just that relationship piece, I think, is big there because people do want to give back when they know that it's a positive thing and it's going to a positive way and it's helping kids develop. That's hard to say no to, whether you're a business or whether you're, just a relative. So I don't know if that helps. Those are just thoughts off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
We
yeah, you can go.
Yeah, no, so one of the things, we had a tournament entry fee that was $2,500 for a kid. The cost of the tournament and the travel and the expense of the hotel and the training and all that was $2,500. And he created a t-shirt. And on the back of it, he went around and said, hey, I'm going to put your business card on the back of the shirt if you give me X number. And then he sold t-shirts. So between selling the t-shirts and the money on the back of the t-shirt, the kid had his way paid and ended up paying for his parents' trip. He made enough money to pay for all of it. That was just a matter of him just creating a t-shirt. And it was a win for the business because now the more t-shirts I sell, right, the more advertisement for the businesses. And so they saw that as a win. And so that's a lot of, like with jiu-jitsu clubs, I could see that as possibly a win. I don't know. But I would say like a rugby club or that, like if you put a rugby logo and, hey, this is my rugby athlete, but he's going to train in this wrestling event or this wrestling development camp, all of a sudden, okay, now you're a multi-sport athlete. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, but okay.
Okay.
So I don't know. Those are thoughts. Those are ideas. And you always get the moms that'll do baked goods and that stuff and bake sales or whatever. But that's not really financially well for a couple $1,000 or for a bigger event.
Yeah.
But okay. Anything else? No, this is great, man. This is a great discussion. I appreciate you guys hopping on and asking and talking. This is what I think is good, and this is how we develop as coaches, right? So
All good from my side anyway. Thanks, Marty.
awesome, awesome. Kyle, is there anything for you or anything?
No, if you guys are happy, I'm happy. It's all about new coaches. So whatever you guys need to know, just talk to Marty. I know he's very open book with anything you might want to ask. So
Awesome. Well, you guys have my contact information. This will be on the website. I'm sure Kyle will put it on the links here soon. Within the next couple days or so, next week, and so you can go back, look over it. If you want the slideshows, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, and I'll make sure that I get the whole presentation to you. No problems, no worries there. So, okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds
Hey, you
good.
guys have a great weekend, guys. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, mate. I'll speak to you during the week anyway.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.